Hello and welcome to another edition of The Right Way to HSA, your one stop shop where we talk about all things health savings account and, more importantly, retirement. My name is Neeraj Mathur, and I'm the founder and CEO of Savings Oak, where we are building the next gen investments focused retirement savings platform. I am so excited and so honored to have Dick Darian, the CEO at Wise Rhino Group, join me today to talk all things retirement. I cannot do justice to his introduction, and therefore I request Dick to actually introduce himself and tell a little bit about his organization.
Nears, thank you, and it's great to be here. Well, you know, uh, about 41 years ago, after giving up on the dream of being the third baseman for the New York Yankees and being too big for the Apollo space program, just couldn't quite fit in that capsule. Happened into the retirement business, actually starting the pension business of an insurance company. I've spent the last 41 years kind of working in different areas of the financial services business, but focused on retirement. And in fact, I was talking to someone over the weekend at Spark, the record keeping conference, and we were talking about the mission that we all kind of have. And we'll talk about that today, which is, it's more than a job. It's a mission to kind of, do well and good, right? So to help folks to retirement, which is certainly a worthy aspiration and a challenging one. But I've been at it for 41 years and from different angles. Currently at Wise Rhino Group, we are focused on helping the buyers and sellers in the retirement advisory and wealth advisory marketplace. We've been involved in over 100 transactions. We've worked with about 350 firms, and 2/3 of our clients did not go to market. They're just looking at their business and trying to figure out a way to continue to survive and thrive. And then I spent some time at BlackRock on the DCAO side, and then MFS on the bundled side, and on and on and on. But great to be here, and looking forward to our conversation today.
Yep. Well, thank you and welcome again. With your vast experience, and I'm sure you have gone through so many different current economic situation is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your view on the current retirement state in the United States, or how you've seen it developed over the last 4 decades?
Yeah. So, I think it's certainly relative, Niraj. You think about there's 160 million or so working Americans, and something like 2/3 of those Americans are covered by a retirement plan, and then those that are covered, about 75% or three-quarters of those actually participate. So, it's definitely a tale of two cities. You've got kind of a healthy group of individuals who have been saving their whole lives, who've been employed, have worked for companies that have corporate retirement plans, and maybe call that kind of half the workforce. And you've got this other half of the workforce that is either not saving, not covered, or are covered, not saving enough. And we won't spend time on the stats, Nerish, but they're not good. Most Americans, 7 out of 10, in fact, don't have a plan, and I think that's more out of fear. They don't want to look. And look, we all know the numbers. Just literally, healthcare alone in retirement, I think, is expected to be, $350,000, and if you live long enough, and that's about the amount you'll get from Social Security. And if you look at the statistics, most people, 6 out of 10, rely entirely on Social Security. So, I don't think this is not a time to talk about the average. I think you've got two different worlds, and half the world is in really tough shape. So, we have to do better. And that's really many of the conversations I've had with people in the business is, how do we, get the folks who are not getting there? What do we have to do to kind of help them? And that's the constant struggle of the entire retirement complex.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing you said about Social Security stuff. I recently spoke with someone whose entire Social Security check was actually going to pay for Medicare.
Yeah.
And this person is kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do I live, because all of that Social Security has gone to
Yeah.
Medicare and stuff. So
Yeah.
fascinating and alarming at the same time. It also brings, and every challenge is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, what are some thoughts, two or three things that come to your mind that we could do to help more Americans pay more attention to this and more effectively be able to save for retirement?
Yeah. So look, I would start with we as an industry have made a lot of progress, right? And I think it starts with the plan sponsors who have over the last 20, 25 years have engaged advisors, consultants, kind of to help them with I don't want to call it the easy part, but certainly establishing strong plans, making the right decisions. There's been a ton of experimentation around how do you get people to make the right decisions, and we kind of came to automatic everything, Derj, and you've got that. You've got target date. You've done so. Plan sponsors have done, I think, a really good job, and the legislators have done a really good job at kind of setting up individuals to succeed. And we've actually entered, I think, a new phase where not that that's over, but most of the tweaking, most of the right design, the right investment approach, the right communication has happened. Now I think we're shifting more towards how do you get individuals to execute and make the right decisions. And then I'd also say that, plan sponsors, the professionals that work at companies, more and more they're beginning to understand and look at benefits more holistically. And they're starting to see the interconnection of all the different benefit plans, specifically 401k, HSA, kind of the health plan, and how do you put that together in a way that you do a better job at communicating the benefit, and you do a better job at the individual understanding that benefit, and more importantly, how do they use it? Because frankly, that's the big gap right now. And there's
Yeah.
all sorts of examples relative to just within the 401k plan, and there's all sorts of examples within 401k HSA. And I think that's really the next battleground, is how do you get individuals to execute better? And it's going to take some advice from the outside, I think.
Excellent point. I think in many of the SMB conversations that I'm involved with CFOs or leaders that are making these decisions, adoption, utilization are their biggest concerns right after the expenses or the costs incurred. And they often talk about the lack of education and awareness despite all their efforts. Have you noticed anything changing or any dramatic, maybe a little too much? What are some things you've observed in your conversations that have changed in the last few years of promoting more education and awareness that might lead
Yeah.
to us towards a better result?
Well, education. So, and communication, Raj. I always say that, the biggest misconception about communication is that it actually took place. So none of us are very good at, whether it's a couple, a group, a company, it gets more complex. That's number one. Number two is the industry itself has evolved massively over since I've been involved. And I remember the days when we thought it was good that you explained to an individual what a stock was, what a bond was. And we realized over time that that was not the way to spend your time, right? So I think the automatic concept was the thing. The other thing that's interesting is years ago, we used to produce benefit statements, which were really descriptions of benefit plans, showed the benefits, showed the dollar amounts. And excuse me, we've gotten away from that. So I think that you're starting to see much more of a focus on, like I said, a holistic approach to how do we get individuals to make the right decisions. And let's not educate them. Let's put them in a position to execute so they do the right things. And I think a big part of that is certainly automatic everything. But I think the biggest gap, and if you look at most of the surveys that take place within, say, retirement plans, the big need for both plan sponsors and participants is provide me with someone who can advise me around what to do. That could start just with how much do I put away? It could start with understanding the matching contribution. And Niraj could get into the complexities of how do I sequence my contributions if I'm in a company that has an HSA. And most individuals, if you ask them, they don't even know what we're talking about, right? So there's a huge, huge need to work with individuals in the company and advise them as to what to do.
Yeah, I love this fact. Just as a conversation I was having earlier today was about, I mentioned that many people think of 401ks if they're familiar with HSAs, which is also a huge set of challenge. Not many people fully comprehend health savings accounts.
Yeah.
They often confuse it with flexible spending accounts for that matter. Is
Yeah.
looking at HSAs and 401ks as complementary cousins in
Yeah.
retirement
Yeah.
is a far better approach than just individualistic or like I can only do this or that.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about trends, do you believe that the current definitions of great resignation, quiet quitting, are these bringing an opportunity where there's an opportunity for employers and everyone involved in the industry to re-engage with employees and help them better understand the existing benefits and how they could help them?
Yeah, I'd say yes, but I would wait to see. I see these trends, Raj, and again, I'm getting older, so of course, I'm getting the perspective of the Great Resignation. Good luck with that, right? But but we're already starting to see that change as the capital markets change. That's going to be a little, it's going to be a little less of an employees market. But anyway, I think there's always opportunity and upside to engage individuals. And for companies, look, they want to recruit people the best. They want to retain their folks. They want them to be productive. And the last thing they want is for these individuals to fret about the retirement and benefit plans. And at the same time, they'd like them at the right point, because if you're the CFO of a company, you don't want someone my age whose knees are failing to stay employed and increase the benefit costs, because I didn't do a very good job at saving and executing. So, retiring with dignity on time is only the right thing from a, kind of an ethical, humanistic perspective, but it's also good for the company. So they should be motivated to help people get there. And there's still a huge gap in doing that. And again, I would just say the combination of the medical plans, the HSA, the 401k, those would be kind of the trifecta, and effectively putting those together. And I still wonder, Niraj, why there aren't more annual enrollment meetings that involve all three of those versus always focusing on medical and kind of having retirement more fluid. So I think there's going to be a lot better coordination of that, and the three should all be related.
Nope, I agree with you 100%. Um, I've often thought about it, and over the last 4 decades of your experience, what has been one most dramatic change in the retirement industry that surprised you in a good way? Anything that comes top of mind?
Let's see, a change that surprised me in a good way. Boy, surprised me. I'm not sure there's anything that really surprised me. I think the thing that I think was the most dramatic was, certainly the fiduciary rules and Niraj, early, without getting into detail, human nature takes. If you look at any provider in this industry, and let's say they happen to be an investment company, look, they want to do the right thing, but they have a product to sell, and you kind of look at any need in this industry. There'll be a solution out there that may not fit, that'll be driven into that square peg into a round hole. So I think that the fiduciary rule really kind of got people to understand kind of what was at stake, and they took it seriously. Now, I think it was overdone, and now we're bringing it back to kind of more kind of realistic, impactful solutions that are not just covering your keister. It's more about impacting the individual, and how do we actually drive outcomes? How do we get people to retire with dignity on time? So, but that was a pleasant surprise that was taken so seriously. I think let me change the question and give you a different answer. The good news is the industry itself has, driven by advisors, consultants, and plan sponsors, has changed dramatically to focus on the participant. So fees have come down dramatically. I think there's been too much of a focus on fees and not enough focus on value and delivering. And that shows up back to the 40%, Niraj, that we talked about, that really need help. And the industry doesn't do a very good job at covering those folks. And and it's not going to be about economics. It's got to be something else.
That's great.
Yeah.
Many a times when I speak with participants, or even for that matter, employers, I often hear from them, well, not only did we not get educated appropriately, I didn't understand some of these things. So all the learning and education is part of that. What is your advice to someone who's starting early in their career around retirement, or how to look at it a bit more differently?
You're talking about the individual, Nourish?
The individual, yes.
Yeah. So look, I've got 3 kids, and I was fortunate enough to help them with college, and because of that, I told them when they started working that if they didn't put in the maximum into their 401ks, I was going to bill them for their college educations. Now, that was one approach. Now, unfortunately, employers can't do that. But look, I think as Einstein talked about the miracle of compound interest. Start early, maximize contributions. I'll give a plug for BlackRock. I worked at BlackRock for 8 years, and BlackRock and their glide path. If you're 22-year-old, you're putting 100% into equity. So that's what you do, and you don't focus on you focus on just staying employed and maxing your contribution and doing it for a long time, and that solves for a lot of mistakes, Niraj. There's nothing there's no investment or sexy kind of add-on to a plan that can make up for time and deferral and just proper asset allocation. And it's that basic. So I wouldn't go beyond that. And I think employers need to force that. And I get your question before about the quiet quitting and all that. I think we're going to have another problem in a number of years. I mean, I've been deferring since I was 22 and hopefully followed my own advice, and it's still not easy. So I would suggest these folks who are quiet quitting to quietly get back to work and defer.
That's an excellent way to put it. No, that's a great point. Look, this is fascinating, and I know a lot of our viewers always admire these things. One question that popped in here was about what is your guidance to CFOs of small, mid-sized businesses that are looking to cut their costs and cut down their healthcare expenses and still want to deliver a good benefits to their employees? What could they be looking at? Any suggestions for that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that one way to approach that would be typically companies are going out to a benefits advisor, a retirement advisor, maybe a third advisor, and that's expensive. And you might say you go to the experts and you do that. More and more, there are firms out there that can integrate all of those things and provide you advice across the board. And it's a more effective, more efficient, less expensive way to, and frankly, more impactful. It's going to potentially, that holistic viewpoint will certainly give you a leg up. So I would say that that's one thing. The second thing is just the fact that you can, you've got the opportunity to put in place for the individuals different features like HSAs and FSAs, and really just kind of doing good job at looking at all the different options. But I think the savings part on the retirement side has happened. We've got the biggest expense historically, Niraj, has been investment cost, and that's come down dramatically, and that will continue. Record keepers have consolidated, so that expense has come down. Advisors do a very effective job. I think the healthcare side, you're going to start to see more regulation around fees. There's already those kind of suggested laws out there, and have more transparency on fees. So I think that shopping your benefits broker is certainly a good idea, and then just putting those plans together maybe as an effective way to save money.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate on behalf of all of us that you took the time to speak with us. Any last thoughts on state of affairs and what's going on? What should we be looking forward to next year?
Nothing in particular, Niraj. I think, I think there's a lot of focus on retirement. Both the government, the retirement industry, the employers, I think, have stayed at it, and improvement has happened every year. That's going to continue, and just glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, appreciate it. And to our viewers, that's it for another edition of The Right Way to HSA. We are here every week on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at savingsoak.com, and one of our HSA specialists will get back to you. We'll be back at it next week. Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Naresh.